Welcome back, Billiken fans. It's Zach Miller and Peter Hale. This is the Midtown Madness, the season 3 finale of the Midtown Madness podcast. And unlike your favorite television show, we will not let you down. Before we get going, thank you so much for listening. If you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. Also, if you leave a comment, I really don't care what you comment. Just don't hate on us. That'd be great. But it feeds the algorithm, gets us out there more and more. As you all know, this episode and the whole season of the Midtown Madness podcast is brought to you by Two Men and a Garden. Peter, I consume a ton of internet content, and I can't believe some of the ridiculous sponsorships out there. We're not plugging a useless subscription service that send you a new piece of bathroom decoration every month. Not here. We are only about Two Men and a Garden salsa. It's local, it tastes amazing, and they've got all the flavors to suit your individual salsa preferences. You can pick up their many products at any local grocery store or online at twomenandagarden.com, which, if you're particular about your salsa, that's where you want to go. They have everything there. You'd not chance it at the local grocery store. They'll have it, but they may not have your specific flavor. Follow them on social media as well at Two Men Salsa on Instagram and Twitter. Pete, I can't think of a worse way to start off this show than talking about college conference shakeups.
I know, and I feel bad putting it in there, Zach, but I think it's like an elephant in the room we got to acknowledge.
It is the George Washington hippopotamuses in the room that we need to address.
It is.
I mean, what are we doing? What's happening? I don't know.
I think we should just set the table and kind of just say like the facts on the ground, like what's happened, and then we can kind of get into it, because it seems to me like the domino that kind of got this latest round going. You have Colorado announcing that they would leave the Pac-12 for the Big 12, and that happened, as we speak now, almost 2 weeks ago. And then you've got last week Oregon and Washington announcing they'd be joining the Big 10, joining USC and UCLA from the West Coast, from the Pac-12. And then we get Arizona to the Big 12. And I think it's not official yet, but it's expected that Utah and Arizona State are expected to join them. So now you have a Pac-12 that's down to 4 members in less than a year from now when all of these moves happen, which is under the minimum requirement of 6. I guess the most obvious solution would be some sort of merger with the Mountain West. And it's crazy, Zach, because we're already seeing decommitments on the basketball side from Cal and Washington State. And that's nuts to see. It's August 7th as we record, August 8th, as you guys are listening to this. That's really late in the game to see guys decommitting, because most people are on campus already. Meanwhile, you've got Florida State looking for private equity money in order to stay competitive. But then the ACC has a huge exit fee if Florida State or Clemson or anyone else like that were to leave the conference. I think they got a little wise after Maryland left, and now it's going to cost teams like close to $100 million to get out. The Big 10 is now up to 18 teams once all these moves take place, and the Big 12 will have 16. The SEC and ACC kind of sat this round out, but the SEC is at 16 once Texas and Oklahoma move over, and the ACC is currently at 15. So, Zach, the important question to us is, does this affect SLU in any way? And if so, how?
No, because Chris May is not doing, he's not being proactive. He's not. So even if the dominoes fell to SLU, we wouldn't be in a position.
So let me read his quote, and I'll follow it up with a question for you, because he
knows he's paying attention. I mean, he says in the quote he's paying attention, but like, this is the school he came from that kicked it all off.
Right.
So it's not like he's unfamiliar with the school that's doing this. So yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
The Atlantic 10 has been great for us. It's elevated our programs from a national perspective, but at all times we're watching the environment. You're always having the conversation about where this is going and how it's going to affect the Atlantic 10 and all of college sports. When you're in the athletic director's shoes at SLU, you're cognizant and aware, watching closely the dynamics. We're positioning this athletic program to be the best we can, while at the same time, we think the Atlantic 10 has been great for us. So you just say like he's not being proactive.
Maybe
The school
okay,
he came from is the one that
mm,
kicked it all off. But I'm wondering, like, what's his move here? What's his play?
yeah, I don't know. I mean, look, I may have gotten wound up and said he's not doing anything, but like that's kind of been his MO. Is he's not he he's not like you look at we talk about the merchandising all the time. It took forever to get that going, to make a
Mhm.
step outside the box thinking, just progress, like future thinking, forward thinking is not this department's MO under Chris May. It's just not. It's reactive.
At the same time, though, like, what can SLU do? Because clearly football is driving
Yeah.
the engine here. I mean, football is what's making all of this happen, right? I mean, that's nobody's moving really because of basketball, especially now that nothing has happened, in this round with the Big East. This is all football driven. And all of the other sports are just along for the ride, whether they want to be or not. And from the sounds of it, what I've kind of been seeing on Twitter, was actually Coach Hendrickson retweeted something that I thought was a really good thread
Yeah.
about how the NCAA kind of talks out of both sides of its mouth, as do the athletic programs and the conferences themselves, because they're constantly saying, whether they're just in a regular press conference, in meetings, in front of Congress, when they're always talking about the student athlete, the student athlete, the student athlete, and that seems to be who's being completely disregarded in these moves. Because now you have 4 West Coast teams that are going to be traveling all the way across the country for all sports.
Mm.
And no matter what they do, and I know they're going to try and do things like maybe travel partners and kind of cluster scheduling so they're not going back and forth quite as much, but like they're going to be out of the classroom quite a bit, no matter how you do it. And these teams, they fly commercial, right? Like they're not football, they're not basketball, they're not flying on charter airplanes, they're flying commercial. And how many times have we had on any of our teams, athletes, coaches, anybody? They all have travel nightmare stories from airports, all of them, because
I
they're traveling in the winter in a lot of cases. They're going to the East Coast, they're going wherever they're going. I mean, the state of air travel right now. I mean, it's just not good. So it's clear that they're being disregarded here, and that certainly does not. It rubs me the wrong way for sure.
yeah, I mean, like you look at like when we had on Emily Nichols and Toby Gillen.
Yeah.
How often did we hear about how ridiculous? And I think John Bell, did he say it on the show? Did he come? Well, anyway, just how ridiculous it is to travel commercial with track and field.
Yeah, and how they just snapped the like the pole vaulting
Yeah,
the poles in
yeah,
half.
whatever. Not even that. Just like you literally put people on flights where you can.
Yeah.
Like,
Right.
and imagine. I mean, obviously, Oregon is Oregon, so like it's a different world. But like Washington track, Arizona track, Arizona State track. I can't even imagine traveling to like conference meets.
Yeah, it's true. It's going to be a nightmare for a lot of them. And it's not, it's not just like we saw two basketball decommits that I hinted at earlier. One was Washington State, one was to Cal. He was actually a transfer from Portland. Mike Meadows, do I have the name right? I think SLU looked at him for a
Sounds
bit, a
right.
guard. They decommitted. And then you have other student athletes that I've seen posting, whether they're softball players, women's basketball players, all different sports, have said like, look, I signed with this program so I could play on the West Coast. Like, I'm from the West Coast. My family's from the West Coast. They can get to a lot of games. And now I'm going to be going to, Rutgers and Penn State, Maryland, places like that, and just basically the rest of the Midwest. And they're like, and that's just, it doesn't make sense for me at all. So you have all of these existing athletes who, they haven't been part of the decision-making process at all. I can't imagine any of these moves would have been approved by the athletes themselves.
I think
They're,
that's what we need to do. I like
yeah,
that.
yeah,
I think you need to have freshmen through juniors, like, you know what I mean? Like nobody graduating, right?
right. The ones who will be impacted.
Yeah. I think that's something that's reasonable.
It
I don't think
is. I
that's
mean,
I don't think that's off the reservation.
and what the case that is being made is always like, well, this is really going to help our coffers. I mean, it's going to be more revenue for UCLA. And I'm like, I came to UCLA to play basketball. I don't care if you have more money. I don't care if
Yeah.
our conference has more money. Like that's not, and it's really been weird, Zach, to see in recent years. I feel like this has kind of been like only the past 10 or 15 years that you see people like actively becoming fans of their conferences, which
That's
is
the
just,
weirdest shit I've
it's not
ever
something that
seen.
existed at all. But we like, everybody's like into sports business as much as sports anymore, and they're like, well, this
Yeah.
is good for our units and they get spread out across the conference and it means more revenue for us. And I'm like, I don't care. Like during Dayton's Elite Eight run, I just wanted Dayton to lose. I don't care. I don't care if it meant like, oh, that's another
uh,
400 grand that'll get spread out 13 ways. Like I
yeah,
don't care. I
no.
just want Dayton to lose.
Yeah.
So like I can't make myself root for these conferences and being like, oh, we're gonna have more revenue to spread around. It's just not. That's not compelling to me at all. It's not interesting, and it certainly wouldn't be to me as an athlete either. Um, and as a fan, I think at some point, and a lot of fans are definitely. I think people are just so cynical now, right? Because like as a fan, like I want to see rivalries preserved. I want to see road games I can travel to. Like there are a lot of things about the fan experience that I think are being ruined. And big time college football fans are so warped by the business side of this that like I see them attacking athletes who are kind of speaking out on this, or journalists who are speaking out on this, or other fans who are kind of like, oh, this kind of sucks to see the rivalries I like get broken up, because they're just talking about like the business side of it. And that's I don't know. I just think that's so lame. That's such a lame way to be a fan. It's like Rob Lowe, not our Rob Lowe, but the actor Rob Lowe sitting
Yeah.
at the Super Bowl with an NFL hat on. It's like just these, why are fans carrying water for the heartless organizations that run
It's
sports? Like be a
it's
fan.
yeah, it's not even like I just don't I don't it's kind of the way everything's moved just in our culture in wanting to you're you've become a fan of more than just the sport or even the sport, the players, the teams. It's weird. I don't know how to describe it. It's like the equation from one of these A10 Twitter of like, people like just basically I don't get it. Like why did I don't get it, dude. I can't even like
So I
it
think
doesn't make any sense. Like I just don't understand the like obsession with that side of sports.
well, and it's the constant need for movement too, right? Like every time the merry-go-round stops and you think like, okay, these are the conferences now, something else happens within the next year. And one team moving means another team has to move and another team has to move, and it keeps going and going and going. And what we're seeing now, the top four conferences that as I just mentioned, are all 15 to 18 teams now. And for a while we've been saying it seems like we're trending toward four super conferences, and it seems like that's very much taking place right now. We were never sure before. It seemed for a while like the Big 12 would be the one to fall apart, and at various times the Pac-12, which actually came to fruition. The ACC has looked vulnerable. It's really just been the Big 10 and SEC that have looked safe, relative to everyone else. But it's just this constant need for movement, like more and more movement, and everybody gets insecure and they have to move too. And you just it's so much change in such a short amount of time. And we've talked about that before in college sports with transfers, NIL, COVID bonus years, all of that stuff that's happening within college sports right now, that's kind of been frustrating to deal with as fans, because it's been a real disruption to the status quo, and you're having to think about a million different things now, and everything's changing so fast. People are transferring around so fast. But it's hard to get mad at like the athletes doing that when like the schools are doing that, the conferences are doing that, the NCAA is letting it all happen. I just, which is kind of, by the way, like at what point do they ever step in and go, can't do this anymore?
I think they're afraid to.
I think that's what it is like the NCAA has lost control of its members, right? Like it has no teeth, it has no regulatory ability anymore. It feels to me like no one's even coming into the office there anymore. Like I'm like, what would you say it is you do here? You know, like an office space. Like what are you doing anymore? NCAA, like
we've reached we've come full circle to where now we want the NCAA to nut up and do something for once.
Yeah, right. I know we've hated them forever, but at the same time, you're kind of like, you got to turn around and be like, yeah, like why?
It's like the parents.
Existence. Help us
it's
out
like
here.
it's like the NCAA, the actual schools are just teenagers.
Yeah.
And like we're looking at the NCAA like their parents. Like, would you guys do something about your children?
Yes.
Like
I'm just picturing my
a
son
fool.
eating an entire bucket of Halloween candy in one sitting. And it's like, you got to step in at some point. These conferences are just gorging themselves on candy right now, and it's hard to watch. But I just think
your metaphors are magical.
The fans of just everybody is just so cynical right now, and I think people are burnt out, and it's just all happened so fast. And I am just not excited at all by the prospect of what these conferences look like moving forward, about like what I'm going to be able to see. One of my buddies shared a tweet with me about the new Big Ten and was like, what if we split the Big Ten into two divisions, call it the Big Ten and the Pac-10, and then at the end of every season, they play a conference championship game. I don't know, let's call it the Rose Bowl. And I thought that was kind of brilliant. Like,
it's gonna happen. Like, it's the complete repackaging of the same damn thing.
That's right. Yes,
it's gonna happen. You know, like in 10 years.
It's just so, yeah, it's so lame. And I worry about, because I've never really been a big college football guy. I don't like anything about it.
It's so weird, isn't it, that we're like major college basketball fans? Like, I know you follow the NBA a little bit more than I do, but like I could not care less about the NBA, and except for Goodwin. And I could not care less about college football, but I like pro football. It's just kind of funny. I don't know.
Yeah, and I was certainly like that, up until the Rams left too.
Yes,
but
exactly. I
think the thing is, I don't want to have to pay attention to college football, but it's driving everything in college sports right now. Yeah. And I care about the sports that SLU participates in, especially basketball, obviously. And everything that's happening in other sports is being driven by football. It's just this monster part. And one of the questions, Zach, that we were asked, speaking of that, is like, why not just let football do its own thing and allow the other sports to stay in their conferences? Yeah. Is it possible to decouple football from everything else? I mean, the bowl system is already separate from the NCAA.
I mean, it doesn't make enough money, right? Like, I just don't even know how you handle that. Like, yeah. I'm doing mental gymnastics just to imagine like a Pac-12 that's just not football.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
I guess it's the A10 and on the Pacific Coast.
Yeah, well, sure. I mean, I think
I just don't.
It's definitely an appealing thought to think like the conferences or these schools hypothetically could kind of take a deep breath and be like, all right, our football team is independent of the rest of the program now. And we can we can make the decisions that make sense for the rest of our
I
student
don't hate
athletes
it.
for
I just
once.
don't have any freaking
Yeah,
clue.
I just don't know how. I don't know how you have how it
Do
happens.
you
Like, because
do you
the football
just
team is still tied to the school, right? And it's still got to have a conference.
yeah, I mean, do you like SEC, Big 10, Big 12? What am I missing? Am I missing any other ones? Is that the Big 3?
Well, the ACC now,
ACC.
yeah, it would be number
So
4.
so what? You either remove the non-rev sports out of those big conferences and put them into um you know, either other conferences,
Mhm.
or you remove the football teams from the conferences, have their own super league, and then leave the conferences as is.
Right. Well, the one of the issues is that where do you cut it off? Because like football has already driven all of the moves so far, right? I think a
Yeah.
lot of basketball programs have been dragged around to different conferences unwillingly. And like, hey, we kind of like where we were a couple moves ago, in some cases, I think.
Zoo.
Uh yeah. And so and so like to just arbitrarily do it now, it's kind of like, well, we're already kind of in a conference we're not necessarily in love with here, right? Like those Pac-12 schools that are going to have to be in the Big Ten in all sports. And those Pac-12 schools, by the way, are some of the colleges that participate in the most varsity sports. So that's a lot of other teams that are being dragged around like this. I just, yeah, I kind of like the idea. I just don't know, how you actually pull it off. And then, kind of the last like sort of topic here, Zach, that I was kind of thinking about is the Big East is obviously the target for SLU because it's not a football conference, and it's kind of where some of our former peers and our aspirational programs are resting right now. It's obvious. But there's kind of rumors around UConn, the only team with a FCS football program within the Big East, and whether they'll go to the ACC, or is the ACC stable enough? Could they wind up in something like the Big Ten? Do you think we'll see UConn make the jump and kind of, because I don't know how successful their football program is going to be as an independent, which it has been.
Yeah, again, it's dude, I honestly don't follow this at all.
Yeah.
It's just it's I mean, like my nightmare is that UConn leaves the Big East and we're in the A10 still.
Well, it certainly exposes us to a worst case scenario if they were like, well, we'll go to 12 and we'll take VCU and Dayton or something like that. And I would just, I would be hard to get out of bed for a few weeks if that were to
I've
happen.
had too many things happen to me
It's just, we
that
can't.
I can't do that.
I just even saying it just gave me
I
like
can't do that.
I like overheated there for a second. But
I
anyway,
got
like
really depressed there for like
that I think would probably be, the domino to fall. I mean, whenever the Big East renegotiates its TV contract, I think is the other possibility. And we've talked about that before, whether they ever get pressure to expand. I don't know what the conversations will be with the Big East. I don't know how much, I don't know whether they're delivering in terms of ratings and clicks and all of the things that they need to for their current home. So time will tell, but unfortunately, football is really driving everything. And now that Fox Sports is a little more established, I don't know if they're going to be as attached to the kind of like brand name basketball they were buying with the Big East. Um, I don't know. We'll see. Maybe they can be more aggressive on the football side now. Next time they renegotiate, and maybe that hurts the Big East. But regardless, those are kind of the two things that could force the Big East to make some moves and make all of this relevant to us again. Because in the meantime,
not necessarily in a good way though.
no, not in a good way. And really the bottom line that I struggle with is the top programs and the top conferences do not care about anyone else at all. I like, I've never seen in Ohio State or in Alabama or one of these programs ever feign the least bit interest in helping out another school or like preserving things that matter to fans of the sport more generally or anything like that. It just doesn't matter. They're ruthless organizations at this point, and they're going to do whatever serves themselves.
I fear that we do not have the level of ruthlessness necessary in our athletic department.
No, or anywhere in
or
our
anywhere in St. Louis University. This is where
nowhere.
Men and Women for Others really doesn't work well.
Right. We've talked about this before too, that our booster culture is not the kind that's just going to throw money at NIL, for example. I mean, it's just not necessarily the win at all costs, do whatever it takes to keep up kind of culture at SLU, for better or for worse. It's always been like that. So I don't know. I guess stay tuned, but it feels bleak, Zach, the direction everything's
Yeah,
going.
my question was, does it even matter anymore?
Does it even matter anymore? Well, I mean, like, hey, that's what we're kind of talking about a minute ago. Is like people are burnt out and cynical, and like you just throw your hands up and you're just like, I hope the games are worth watching when they come around again.
God, speaking of the games coming around again, tomorrow night, finally, we have something as Billiken fans to at least think about that's not theoretical or
Right.
you
Right.
know.
Yeah. It's not a recruitment. It's not
No.
a business dealing.
Speaking of business dealings, though, Jake Forrester signing a contract with the second tier of the Bundesliga.
Yeah, that's what that would be. It's Germany's Pro A League, with the Artland Dragons, second tier of the Bundesliga, and then they do have promotion and relegation there. So theoretically, the team, I did look them up. I don't think they've ever won their division, but theoretically, they could always move up to the top tier in Germany, which is a pretty solid league. But good for Jake. He's been posting a lot lately with his his son and his young family, and it just he seems like he's in a good place right now, and hopefully things go well for him over there.
Yeah, best of luck. Be great, Jake. It's hopefully he does great over there.
Yeah.
Couple of new offers out. Who's this 2024 offer?
Cameron Martin. He's a 6'4", 175-pound combo guard from the Blue Ridge School in Virginia. He plays his AAU ball with Inspire Elite, which is on the Adidas Gold circuit. It's kind of like their second tier, if that works for you. So he's kind of a 3-level scorer. He's a playmaker, like I said, combo guard, good defender. He can change speeds and directions. He's shifty getting to the rim. He's got a nice, well-rounded game for a guard. Good jumper. He's got some range on his shot. It's funny, Zach. He honestly looks a lot like Kellen Thames on video. If you watch some video on it, yeah. And SLU's only his second offer so far after SIUC a week earlier. And for a 2024 player, that's kind of late in the game, right? To just be getting your first 2 offers, right as you're about to start your senior year of high school. So he's kind of an under the radar late bloomer type who could wind up being a steal probably in the spring. He could also be a candidate for a guy who goes to prep school and uses that 5th year to let the last of the COVID bonus year guys clear out of the college ranks, and hopefully, prep and high school guys are in a better place when that comes around. So definitely a slow burn recruitment he's had, and we'll keep our eyes on it. But it's cool to see SLU be his second offer. If they think this kid's got some potential, and it looks like he does.
This next offer, I think, excited a lot of fans, especially because we were the first program to offer, and he's local.
Yeah, all those things are true. He's 2026 recruit. His name's Eddie Smajic. I think I'm saying that right. It's a Bosnian last name, actually. He's 6'5", 195. He's a wing from Vianney, and so he's in the same class as Luke Walsh. Gateway AAU, which plays on the Under Armour circuit, is where he plays his club ball. He's a really nice looking player, Zach. Super clean, consistent jumper. He's got range on it. He's got a strong frame. He uses it to get to the rim. Does not look like a guy who's about to be a sophomore sophomore, right? He looks older, he looks bigger. He draws a lot of fouls. He knows how to get separation on his mid-range jumper. So he's got a lot of tools. He scores in a variety of ways, which I love to see in a younger player, to already be that crafty, to know how to score in so many ways. And then he just has like a smooth, controlled game. I think he's got a tough streak too. And I might be projecting there because he's a Bosnian dude, and the Bosnians I knew in St. Louis were just the toughest people, man. And he's just kind of got that grit to his game a little bit too, despite having that kind of smooth polish as well. SLU's the first to offer, like you said, but schools like Providence, Iowa State, and Mizzou are kind of circling around. So that's some high level names to be involved with a guy who's about to be a sophomore. I have to believe his recruitment is going to keep going up and up, and be more competitive. And like I said, he's a teammate of Luke Walsh at Vianney. It's weird for me to see SLU with 2 offers out to younger players at Vianney. I mean, like, that's just not an MCC school that you're used to seeing being a power. So it's kind of impressive what they've done with their program there. And he's a really nice looking player.
Looking at the women's basketball side of things, a new addition to the staff.
This is great, Zach. This happened, as we pod, this just happened a couple hours ago. They announced Brooke Flowers as the new graduate student manager. And so cool to see her staying home, staying with the program, and getting into coaching with the program that she made such a mark on.
Yeah, I'm excited about this. A bummer that things didn't seem to work in the pro levels. Yeah, I mean, maybe it's just not maybe she's not down with the grind if it's not at the top level. And
there's also the possibility, think of a DeVell Roby, right?
Yeah.
Who played for a while, got into coaching, and then started playing some more.
Yeah.
So
and
it's
she
never
could be working
quite
out with the
over
team as well.
Exactly. I mean, she's the only difference now is she's not going to suit up, right? I mean, but she
Right.
has all of the same facilities, and she'll be at practice every day. And it's not like she's just going to shut it down completely. So you never know. I would hate to think that the door closes all the way, but it's definitely tougher on the women's side, not as much opportunity. And you have things like the Russian league completely shutting down for overseas players and stuff like that in recent years. So not as many opportunities, not as ideal timing, but I still, you never know. You never know.
Pete, I think this might be the most exciting news of the off season.
Yeah.
As far as Billiken athletics goes. And I had heard a little bit about this in the spring, late winter. We're going to have the bronze boot at City Park. I'm hyped.
I am too. And I thought what surprised me is I didn't realize that they were going to do it for both the men and the women, right? So the women are going to kick off against SIUC at 5.
SIUE.
And then, oh, did I say C? Sorry,
Yeah.
Edwardsville. I'll just say
Yeah.
Edwardsville. So the women are going to play Edwardsville at 5, and the men right after them at 7:30. So I love that it's back to back. I love that they're both playing at City Park. I mean, what an opportunity for all of them. It's incredible. I have to imagine there aren't a lot of other college teams that are playing in brand new MLS stadiums. And if this becomes an annual thing, I think it's wonderful. I absolutely love it. On the men's side, this is the 32nd installment of the Bronze Boot. The series started back in 1969, and then they didn't play it after 1995 until they picked it up again in 2018. SLU actually has a better record in this than I expected. They're 27-9-3 all time against SIUE, and then they're 23-5-3 in the Bronze Boot game. So I guess they didn't call it that before 69. Nice. Edwardsville has not won since 1982, which also surprised me, but I guess most of those years they didn't play. But 3 of the games since the series restarted 5 years ago have gone to overtime. So it's not like it's been SLU's been blowing them out of the water in this game. And then I also didn't realize they don't call it the Bronze Boot on the women's side. I guess there's just not as much history there. So I don't know if they'll start that or not.
If you want to go old school, just slipper, just be really out of touch.
Yeah, I can't imagine they'll start an out of touch
Yeah, no,
tradition like that. But I if they do a women's bronze boot, I think that'd be pretty cool too to get it started. Uh,
absolutely.
yeah.
Well, yeah, tickets. How much are they?
$20 for both matches, and if you're going with a group of 10 or more, it's 10 per ticket. So take all your friends, go down to City Park. You won't have to pay an arm and a leg like you will for the top MLS team or anything like that. So great way to see the stadium as well.
Yeah, I think the only downside to all this is that it is, I believe, the same night as City Sporting KC in
That's
Kansas
right, in
City.
Kansas
So,
City. Yeah.
uh, yeah, I mean, this is going to be. I still think this will draw really well.
It should. I mean, I would have to think that this is going to get attention, of a lot of SLU alums who, maybe they haven't seen the stadium yet. Maybe they haven't wanted to pop for ticket prices or haven't been able to since everything's been sold out there. So it's a good opportunity to do that. And yeah, I mean, just sounds like a nice night out, to be honest.
Women's soccer ranked 21st in the United Soccer Coaches preseason poll.
Yeah, what do you think of that level, Zach? I mean, they bring a lot back, obviously, and they were a top 10 team last year, really. They just had that early exit in the tournament, So I think a lot if I'm a women's soccer follower who is not a SLU fan or whatever, neutral observer, you wonder, you go, okay, well, maybe we overvalued a smaller conference team that had a really impressive record, and maybe this is about right. And I don't know. I mean, I can definitely see why they're there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think when you look at the Billikens and, yes, they dominated last season in conference, got the hype going in the tournament, and then, didn't live up to the hype. You didn't really, you brought in some really good freshmen, you brought in some good graduates, but again, you're bringing back the same roster that kind of choked in the first round.
Right.
This is what you get.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's about right. I would have been surprised if they weren't ranked at all. I also would have been a little nervous, like last year when the men came into the season ranked 10th, and we were both like, ooh, that's generous, like given how many guys had moved on, it was like 10th, like, okay, we like the new guys too, but like, okay. And then they didn't quite, live up to number 10 in the regular season. They definitely got better as the season went on. Yeah, so this definitely feels fair to me.
Yeah. They kick off their preseason with Lindenwood tonight, as you're listening to this, at 7 p.m. The game will be played at Lindenwood. I'm going to do my very best to get out there. Shields said all returning players are available.
Yeah, that's great to hear that they're healthy, because so many seasons, we've been dealing with players out for the year or missing the start of the year or just kind of banged up, and it sounds like finally they're in really good shape, really good condition to start this season, and that's a relief.
And the second and final preseason match will be at home against Evansville on Saturday the 12th at 6 p.m.
Yeah, another good opportunity to get out and see them.
And also, you will hear from Coach Katie Shields on our episode that will drop the 14th. So you will get, we will do a season preview, and we'll get her reaction to that Evansville and Lindenwood friendlies, as they call them across the pond.
Right.
Pete, talk about this 2025 commitment. It's top 100 national.
Yeah, I mean, like, she has it even in her Twitter bio. Number 97, I think, is what is where she's at. But it's Summer Fischel out of Roncalli High School. I think I'm saying that right, in Indianapolis, and she plays for FC Pride, which is in the ECNL club circuit. For those not familiar, it's kind of the EYBL equivalent, if you're trying to make the basketball comparison, the top Nike circuit. So like Zach said, she's a top 100 national recruit. She's SLU's first commitment from the 2025 class. And the Bills already have at least 8 2024 commitments, according to Top Drawer Soccer, where this is also listed. It was kind of surprising, Zach. It seems like the official women's soccer Twitter account retweeted her commitment tweet. And I didn't know if they were necessarily allowed to do that. I don't know what
they are.
I didn't know what the rules on that are, but I've been noticing that more lately, as seeing programs retweeting their, like, they're not saying anything, they're just kind of retweeting
Yeah,
it. You know what I mean?
I think that's always been fair game.
Yeah.
I think you've always been able to retweet people. It's like retweeting is not an endorsement.
Right. Right. Like, we're just
Uh,
passing along information, no comment.
yeah,
Uh,
it's yeah, I think it's always been that way.
okay. All right. Well, yeah, I mean, I'm sure they're not going to do something that's like out of compliance or anything like that.
And
But regardless,
you just dropping the dime on them. Way to go.
I mean, and I know the powers that be listen to this show too.
Yes.
So, or they probably watch it even. But I mean, to me, this is an ideal way to start your 2025 class. You know, you do a top 100 commitment. I mean, that's a statement in and of itself. She's from the region, you know, not necessarily the area. So it's good to see us drawing that level of talent from another major market. Great way to kick off that class. And yeah, I mean, with a midfielder, you know, you just gotta, I just like it all around. It's great to see. It feels like they've been really upping their game on the recruiting trail.
Yeah. An article, Stu Durando just published an article actually regarding Jess Preusser and Nina Preusser finally getting the chance to play on the same team after 2020 derailed that in their high school careers. Jess deciding to come back and play one more year with the Billikens so that she could play with her younger sister Nina. Go give that a read. It's a really nice little story to get you ready for Billiken soccer preseason.
Nice.
On speaking of preseason and Billiken soccer, the men are ranked 24th in the United Soccer Coaches Poll.
Yeah. So how do we feel about this ranking? Comparable to the women, a little bit lower, barely inside that top 25.
I find it incredibly interesting that the men are ranked 24. I think I am shocked actually with the amount of just major hype this program has gotten with their recruiting class.
Yeah.
I think the level of just utter respect that coaches have been giving the SLU about their recruiting class, like people are beside themselves at this recruiting class.
I thought they were going to be ranked higher than the women. It kind of surprised me. I don't know if that means there are a lot of other teams that are strong this year, you know, like, are there a lot of other teams that are bringing big time players back? I don't know enough about the national landscape necessarily to say. It just did surprise me based on, like we said last year, they come in at number 10, which we thought was like way too generous. And then now they're 24th. And it's kind of like, well, wait a minute. We didn't just lose like the amount of dudes we did the year before, where everybody got drafted. Completely different situation. So I don't know. We've got some killer returners. We've got as you said, an incredible incoming class. I would love to see them outperform that ranking very quickly. I think they certainly have the ability to do so.
Yeah, I do. And by the way, shout out Jack Micah. Just a awesome dude, by the way. Senior. Ran into him at the gym the other week and I forgot to shout it out. Let's talk about volleyball, Pete. The team that just got their new gear today. They posted on Twitter. I love new gear day for these teams, man. Yeah, I think everybody knows I like that.
It's back in my day, when the gear was not as plentiful or as nice as it is now.
But the sizes were much larger.
Yeah, much larger. Yes. You know, it just didn't have the same feeling as like when you can post these like nice shots on social media, right? Like there was no way
the cameras just weren't as good.
The cameras just weren't there. Like
Yeah.
there was no way of
You
recording
couldn't
what
get
was
that
happening.
picture to the paper, or,
No, I just don't remember it being like a thing.
no.
I remember like the process of,
You didn't put
you
on your
know,
MySpace?
with the I never had a MySpace, by the way.
Oh,
Uh,
wow.
I remember the process of like ordering the gear and the coaches like kind of arguing over what design they wanted to do any given season on certain things. But no, I never really I never remember even from the manager perspective, it wasn't like this big reveal where everybody walks into the room and they're being filmed. It was just not a thing. But yeah, it is kind of a fun tradition. I'm glad they have fun with it. It looked like they just did it for women's soccer a few days ago as well. So uh, yeah, you gotta love it.
I just wish they would order like 100 pieces extra and just put
Yeah,
them on hangers and sell them.
that's right.
Let's do it.
Yeah, because that's the best stuff, by the
It
way. Like
is.
there's
It
nothing like it
is.
in the bookstore.
No, there's nothing like it anywhere. I mean, I don't know. Like, I want to get the opinion of somebody who's just like the fan of like a major football school.
Mm.
Like, do they even think about it? Like, it occupies our like consciousness. It has to way more than the big schools, right?
Yeah, they have everything,
Yeah.
and they still want more.
Bullshit. Uh volleyball got a new commitment too. 2024 player.
I really like this one, Zach, and I'll get to why. Kayla Jansen of St. Joseph's Academy and High Performance Volleyball Club, which has been a top 5 club team nationally several times with her on the squad. She's a 6'2" middle blocker. And what I love here, she's also an all conference basketball player who averaged 13.7 points a game, 13.3 rebounds a game, which was 5th in the St. Louis area, 4.4 blocks a game, tops in the metro area, and an 84% field goal percentage, which I don't even understand. How are you not getting her the ball more? It just looks like I had to read it so many times. It seems like a typo, even. I'm wondering, can we get her to play 2 sports in college? Because she and like there's like I looked at her Twitter to like kind of figure out her bio and stuff like that for the volleyball commitment, and there were some clips of her playing basketball. She looks like a really good player. Like she's not just like tall and beating up on the tomato can schools or whatever. Like she looks legit. Like she looks athletic. I I kind of wonder, like, man, maybe she could walk on basketball too.
Hey, all right, fine. Trivia questions are back.
All right.
Trivia questions are back. Name the last Billiken to suit up in 2 sports.
In 2 sports, I'm gonna
I've
say,
said it on the pod.
and
I
and,
know I've said this.
and I can't do Toby Gillen track and cross country. That doesn't
You
count.
can go hang up now.
Um, I mean, volleyball, basketball is a
It
pretty
was,
natural one,
yes,
especially,
yes, you're right. Yes.
and I know who it is, but I can't. I'm blanking.
Good old Sammy McLeod.
Yeah, that's right. All right.
Good old Sammy McLeod. Thanks to well, she earned her spot. She's very good at basketball. But yeah, the old stress fracture
Mm,
epidemic of like 2007 or 8. I don't even remember.
right.
Um, yeah, so she could be the first to do that since then.
Yeah,
I like this because she followed us on Twitter first.
she did.
Like,
Yes.
so Kayla Jansen's already my favorite play next year.
Right.
So yeah, I think absolutely. I mean, at least get her, if she wants to, you know, walk on and practice
It,
player, whatever, just to stay sharp.
it would be awesome. I mean,
Yeah,
6'2" and clearly skilled.
absolutely.
But from a volleyball perspective, I mean, this is more of that like winning and recruiting in
Yes.
the local market, like like we know Coach Beatty wanted to do. I mean, that was one of the things she said like right away, and one of the things they were looking for is who can recruit St. Louis, and she's already getting some big wins in the area.
Competitors and
Nice.
winners, and
Yeah.
nothing says competitor like an all-conference basketball player to go along with a member of a top 5 club team nationally in volleyball.
Yeah. Yeah. It like checks all the boxes.
It does. Yeah. I mean, and you look at women's soccer, who's had unbelievable success with players that are not just one sport athletes.
Mm-hmm.
So I love where Beatty's heading with this. We're hoping to get Coach Beatty on the show. We're aiming the 20th to record the 20th for the 21st release. But yeah, we'll see. I haven't gotten full confirmation, but I'm just gonna throw her under the bus right now and just commit her to the 20th.
Pressure's on. Pressure's on.
Field hockey, Pete. We have not talked about them in a while.
No, we haven't, but now that they're going to be playing before our next show comes out, so we've got to talk about them. They kick off their preseason against Iowa, who has been very, very good. They're going to be at Sportport on Saturday the 12th. I think Iowa's actually been they've been top 10 both of the last 2 seasons when we've played them up there, and I want to say they were like number 2 and number 10 or something like that. So yeah, that'll be a nice test, and not just because of the competition, Zach, but other factors.
Yeah, we talked last season that teams might have had complaints with the turf at Sportport. So we'll see if anything happens this year or any games are moved. I was kind of surprised that they are playing at Sportport again. So I kind of got to look at their schedule. I wonder if anything has changed, or if anything says anything.
Yeah, I mean, you'd like to think that Sportport got the message if enough teams, pulled out of there or whatever. But I mean, they essentially played the back half of their season at high schools, right? I mean, they were playing at MICDS a few times. I know they played at a couple other places, Principia, I want to say. So hopefully Sportport got their act together.
Yeah. Also, since we're talking non-revs, actually we'll go with softball first, and then I'm going to tease I'm going to tease something that I can't announce, but I'll tease it. With, watching Billiken athletics. Pete, let's talk softball. They got, some staff movement.
Some new assistants. First one's the assistant coach, Kim Wirt, a recent Mizzou grad, 2022. She's pursuing a doctorate of chiropractic at Logan University. She's worked for 5 years as a private hitting instructor in Columbia, Wentzville, Chesterfield. Kind of an interesting, I guess, way to put yourself through college or whatever. At Mizzou, she was first team All SEC. She was third team All American as a senior. So she's a big time hitter. First all time in home runs at Mizzou. She's 5th in program history and slugging percentage, and was 7th in RBIs. So I mean, she's young. She can really hit. Hopefully that translates into coaching. And I have to imagine, given the fact that she's already been kind of one-on-one coaching anyway, that she's ready for the gig. And it's pretty cool, that since she's already in the area while she works on this degree. It seems like they're going to have her around for at least a few years, you'd think.
Yeah, I really don't like baseball and softball are just so foreign as far as like coaching staffs. It's an absolute just grind to coach baseball and softball.
It is, and and I know the assistant salaries are not high. Luckily she's young, and yeah, I have to imagine most of the salary is going to be trying to put herself through school. So it seems like it's a good fit and makes sense for now. And I think that's just what you have to be, right? If you're a head coach putting a staff together, is who makes sense, given the resources we have, given our needs. This looks like a really good fit on paper.
Yeah. Let's talk about this other addition. It's a graduate assistant.
Yeah, and I'm going to say her last name's Morio, Tegan Morio. She just graduated from Eastern Illinois, where she was a pitcher who helped the Panthers to a 2023 Ohio Valley Conference title and NCAA tournament appearance. She actually spent her first 3 seasons at Ball State before spending her last 2 at Eastern Illinois. So she did exercise that COVID bonus year and easy transfer too, I guess. So yeah, don't really know much about her beside that. Just what she did in college, but yeah, she's grad assistants, and yeah, another one makes sense on paper.
And the I'm hearing, well, I'll get to the Billiken athletics, but we've kind of heard rumblings that SLU might be heavily investing in ESPN Plus broadcasts.
We have heard rumblings.
We have heard rumblings. So, but what to further that point, they're, I believe they're working on a deal for a local establishment, an establishment in the area, to be able to watch all Billiken games at, no matter what the sport.
That would be amazing.
Yeah.
Just on demand and any sport, anytime. I mean, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. So that'll be cool. See how that, when that gets announced, but I'm assuming it will be announced soon. Pete, do we want to do a what if today?
I think we can do one. I wasn't sure how long this first part would take. We did a whole hour on it.
Yeah, we could do
so,
30. We could do 20, 30 on a what if.
We could do a what if. Yeah, as you guys know, we've been working through some of these what ifs, specifically as they relate to men's basketball, and we've talked about a couple already. But which one do we want to do tonight, Zach?
Do we want to get scandalous?
We could do that. Yeah, sure.
I really have no idea where are we worried where the allegedly goes? Like, do we care?
I'm not. I know I can speak for myself. I'm not going to say anything that's going to get myself in trouble.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's a hell of a one to just kind of roll with. You've got a lot here on. You know what? I want to talk about Craig Upchurch, actually, because I want to hear you talk about it, because I think it kind of just gets passingly mentioned. The Craig Upchurch, kind of like that effort from Minnesota. It's a Billikens.com meme at this point. But I don't think we ever really know much about it.
Well, let's do this one, because this is one that certainly predates both of our fanhoods. It predates your existence.
Yes, it does.
You were not around in '87, so a lot of older fans, and I'm comfortable saying that at this point, a lot of older fans remember this as one of the great missed opportunities, tragedies, whatever you want to call it, in SLU basketball history. And I've kind of whittled this down from, I think Joel Hall did a really long thread on Twitter once about this. Other people have posted on the message board. There have, been articles written about it. Craig Upchurch was a very, very good basketball player, a good recruit. He signed with SLU on April 17th of 1987. SLU was coming off a 25-10 season with Monroe Douglas, Roland Gray, and Anthony Bonner. So it was their first postseason appearance in 22 years. They had that core, those 3 guys who, by the way, are 3 of the best players, ever to put on a SLU jersey. That's a great core right there. So Rich Grauer brings in Charles Newberry and John Duff. They got a JUCO forward named Jeff Ford, and they started going after Upchurch really seriously. Charles Newberry, by the way, was a guy that I spoke very highly of a few episodes ago when we were doing our bracket, our most improved player ever. He wound up being an excellent point guard. So Craig Upchurch was the top player in Missouri coming out of Beaumont High School, city public school. So his grades and test scores were the issue, right? Like he just wasn't there. And it was a lot tougher to get over that hurdle back then. Today there are ways to get guys eligible a little more easily. SLU made him take some summer classes before his freshman year. And during that time, it was determined by someone, and to this day, it's still unclear who, that he could not attend SLU in the fall. Grauer fought it, but he was overruled, and Upchurch claimed he wanted to leave. So Houston manages to free up a scholarship for Upchurch. He scores 19 points in his college debut. He averages double figures, and was the first freshman there since Clyde Drexler to be a regular starter. Led them in scoring as a sophomore, went to 2 NCAA tournaments as a junior and senior. And SLU and Grauer, they both struggled after that, right? Like they didn't have momentum. All of a sudden they had kind of lost their momentum. So the thought is, if you add Upchurch, who was an instant impact freshman at a powerhouse at the time, Houston, if you add Upchurch to that core of Douglas, Gray, Bonner, and younger role players like Newberry, Duff, Ford, that's a really, really good team. And SLU was in I think the Great Midwest Conference at the time. Xavier, Drake, Butler, I think I'm getting this right. Kind of some teams that went on to the either A10 or Missouri Valley or a couple other places. Definitely was a team that would have had a shot at an at-large bid and really could have gone places. And so this is the great what if, right? Like what if you add him to that core? And there are a lot of older fans who will tell you like that this is the one for them. Like that was the dude. This was the team. And they just never got to see it come to fruition.
Yeah. I mean, you're looking at guys like you had 19 points a game to a team with Monroe Douglas that averaged in that 14-14 season. Monroe Douglas 15.9, Roland Gray 14.6, Bonner 13.8. By the way, I want to be at the party with Roland Gray and Anthony Bonner. That would be just an absolute booze fest. I'm sure.
I've never met Gray, but have you met Bonner
Gray
before?
I've met Bonner, yeah, at Humphreys.
He's a great guy. He's really fun guy to talk to. I really, really like Bonner. So
I love that story of him coming back to campus and just drinking dudes under the table.
Oh yeah. I mean, he's a large man. He just has a presence about him.
Yes, he does.
So to put that, so he signs in 87. So they're coming off that season, 25-10. And yeah, Gray is scoring 16.9 points a game as a sophomore. Douglas is a sophomore, 15 points a game, 5 rebounds a game, 3 assists a game. Bonner's a freshman, averaging about 10 and 10. And you go to their sophomore season and they end up 500.
Yeah.
And they have that same core, but it just, I don't know, for whatever reason, it's just, they struggle that season, right? I mean, they've got Tony Brown, who's a senior forward, averaging about 10 and 4. You've got Newberry after that, who's
Duff was not quite ready.
Who's their assist man, right? Yeah, Duff's a freshman. Ramon Trice is there as a role player. I don't know if it was depth.
Is it that senior leadership? I mean, you look at, you got Roeder, Mimlitz, Brown, Reddit Hudson. I mean, then you go to a team the next year that's, you've got juniors in Monroe Douglas, Roland Gray, but sometimes, I mean, maybe that's just not their thing.
Yeah, and I'm looking at their
and you don't have the talent to overcome.
And the schedule was tough. I mean, look, so yeah, they're in so it was called the Midwest Collegiate Conference. All right. So I had the name wrong at the time, but you're basically talking about Butler, Xavier, Detroit, Loyola, Evansville, is really your main competition in that conference. So okay, so that's the era that we're talking about. Detroit. They also play a ranked Memphis team that year. They win, actually. They lose to a top 10 Duke team. They lose at a ranked Bradley. It's a tough schedule, but you've got some puzzling losses early on, like Iona, Grambling,
Detroit Mercy later on.
Yeah, Illinois State they lost to. They lost 4 in a row. Missouri State, Eastern Illinois, Florida A&M they lost at.
We talked with
that Duke game.
I feel like I had a conversation about that Florida A&M game with John Duff.
Yeah, you may have the last lost interview.
I know,
but yeah, and then they bounce early in the conference tournament. They lose by 3 to Detroit.
That's two losses to Detroit Mercy, who had single digit wins that season.
Right. And they beat him in the third, that the game in between those two, but just kind of puzzling, why that season could never really get going with, with that core of guys. And then the next year, they bounce back in a big way, right? Like, because now you've got Bonner and Gray, or sorry, Douglas and Gray are seniors, and now you've got Bonner making a big leap. He becomes the leading scorer in that trio as a junior. And then you've got Tony Manuel, Vince Smith, Charles Newberry is playing better than the previous season. Jeff Luchtefeld is showing some improvement. So that was a better team. And when you add in both of those seasons, when you add Upchurch to that roster, I mean, I do think that's a big difference. I think you're looking at a team that makes multiple tournaments with him around.
Do you think that do you think Grauer struggles as a head coach? Do you think they stem from just the kind of just the lack of trust in the institution after the Upchurch situation?
I mean, it can't help. He stays there for a while though, right? Like, so he goes 14-14 in the year that so disappointing after not getting him. And then he bounces back 27-10. They don't make the tournament though. Let me see here. They played in the NIT actually, and they went all the way to Madison Square Garden. That's right. They lose to St. John's at Madison Square Garden after beating Michigan State up there. So that was a really good team. And then the following year is an NIT again. They go to Madison Square Garden. They wind up losing to Vanderbilt after beating New Mexico. So they went on 2 deep NIT runs. And then after that, you get to 90-91. Bonner is now a senior, I believe. Let me verify that. Yeah. No, sorry. Bonner is gone by this point. That's right.
Yeah.
So he's gone. And now you've got 5 guys averaging double figures: Dillard, Foots, Luchtefeld, Robinson, Stewart, and then Duff just outside the top 5 with Carlos Skinner. It's a solid team, they're 19-14 in overall. They go to the third round of the conference tournament. I guess that probably would have been the final, lose to Xavier. So no postseason for them. And then it's really after that where things tank, right? Like now you've got 91-92. They go winless in conference. They go 5-23 overall. Just a disaster of a season. And, that's the one where Highmark and Claggett and Winfield, it's that freshman class that we've talked to both Claggett and Highmark about. So that's where the wheels really came off for Grauer. I think it's the way that I had that written up before. Grauer struggled after that. I think it's ungenerous to say he struggled. Like, he went 500 that first season. That was disappointing. He had good teams after that, right? Like kind of like the teams that we've been lately. You win 20 games, but maybe you don't really have much of a, although I guess that's not really fair because they did back-to-back NIT finals, right? So it's hard to say that he struggled necessarily. It was just not quite where you wanted to be, not quite a tournament team. And then the wheels just completely come off in 91-92. The next year, Spoon's coaching. And then you get into the Spoonball era. But you do wonder, I mean, those last 5 years of Grauer are really, they're defined by Bonner, Douglas, and Gray, and a couple deep NIT runs, but equally defined, I think, in a lot of fans' memories by Upchurch not being there and being that sort of missing piece that makes that a deep team that goes to multiple tournaments.
Yeah. So we're thinking 88, 89 would have been a deep run in the NCAA tournament.
Oh yeah, that potential was there. And I think that would also probably be true of 89-90. I mean, that could have been a dangerous team with Newberry as a senior, Kevin Foote scoring 14 points a game. You've got a young Melvin Robinson who's already pretty good. I think that could have been a dangerous team too.
It's interesting to go back and look at the NCAA tournament, who was in it. Obviously, it's it's interesting. It kind of does that catapult then? I mean, does that change what happens to Grauer's tenure? I mean, I don't know.
Well, the other thing you look at is you
That
wonder about.
you could honestly probably equate Upchurch and Tatum.
Mhm. Yeah.
But I mean, then are you unfairly connecting Cruz to Grauer?
Well, I mean, and
That'll
I don't
piss some people off.
I don't know if you want to get into the Tatum what if now or do that
No,
another time.
not really.
Yeah, we'll do that one another time. But I think there are some other pretty crucial differences there as
Mm-hmm.
well. But the other thing that I would wonder about is conference affiliation because after Grauer, so basically in Grauer's last year, we go to the Great Midwest, which I had mistakenly called the Midwest Collegiate Conference before.
Well,
So
it was.
the Great Midwest forms in 91, 92, which is the year that Grauer just completely, things fell apart. And that's only 6 teams: Cincinnati, DePaul, Memphis, Marquette, UAB, and SLU. And so you've got that in 91, 92, and then you're in that until 94, 95, right? So just for those 4 seasons, and then you go to Conference USA. And I'm thinking, even if SLU goes on those if they've got Upchurch, they make a couple runs in the NCAA tournament, I still think they probably wind up in the same place conference affiliation
Yeah.
wise. Like because you're talking about Marquette, Cincinnati, DePaul, Memphis. Dayton eventually joins that conference, the Great Midwest, but they don't make the transition to Conference USA. Dayton was actually horrible at the time. They won, I think, 1 conference game in the course of 2 seasons leading up to the Conference USA formation, which is crazy to think about, by the way, because there were some programs that end up going to Conference USA that really were never that good. That was really a stratified conference between a top half that was really strong, bottom half that was kind of weak. SLU and maybe Charlotte, UAB were kind of the middle zone of that conference. And you wonder, had Dayton not been so horrible in that era, if they could have wound up there in the first place. But anyway, I don't think it would have changed where SLU went conference wise. So I think in that sense, the Upchurch what if is maybe not as devastating as some others, right? I think it would have meant that era of SLU basketball would have been better. Maybe Grauer would have been around a little bit longer as well. We may have never had Spoon. We may have never had Spoon ball.
Yeah, I wonder, you mentioned the conference thing and how we'd probably be in the same spot regardless. I just wonder, you know, as much as we'd love to see, our athletics department and our administration take a little bit more proactive. I mean, we're really kind of just like on an island out here, being a Midwest private school. Most of the Midwest collegiate conferences that are worth a damn are tied to football. There's no East Coast program, not really. I mean, the Pac-12 is a basketball conference. It is.
That's a hot take.
It's a hot take, but I think I just don't. They've always been better among the basketball landscape than among the football landscape, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I would probably agree with that overall, although they've been kind of basketball wise, they just haven't been as strong as they were historically, right? And I think USC and Washington football would probably be the other argument there. But I think actually both basketball and football, they're really not, they haven't been as consistently powerful as other conferences. But regardless, I know what you mean. And it does make me wonder, like being a non-football
Midwest
private Midwestern school. There are more of those, right? Like more of those than we think about, because we only really think about the ones in our peer group, like Dayton, and now I guess you would say Loyola and some of the others like that. But we we're constantly, cursing that we're not the Xavier, right? Or even Butler, like the ones who are in the Big East now, DePaul. There are a lot of things that could have gone a different way in our program's history that would make us more of a Detroit right now.
Yeah.
Athletically, where they're in a one bid league and no one's talking about Detroit Mercy basketball. They're just not. We could very well have been like that kind of team, had a few things broken, even worse.
Yeah.
Like as SLU fans always want to say, we're always waiting for the other shoe. We've never had good luck. We've never had good timing. And I think those things are all kind of true, but it could have been worse. And we've been a conference made of some other teams that have not gotten above that either horizon or valley or that tier of schools, and not even at the top of those conferences. So I think Evansville might be another one where you've got a Midwest private school without football. That's kind of been a pretty stagnant basketball program for a long time. So yeah, in some ways we are a little more fortunate, but I think overall we do these what ifs because we've been so close to being at a higher level so many times.
I wonder why, like, as a school that feels on an island, why are these Catholic schools like trying to bring up teams? Like, why can't we band together with some, you mentioned Detroit, obviously they're not making a commitment to basketball, but other schools that are looking to raise their profile and say, let's all get together and let's put together a league here, guys. Like, let's do something. I mean, I don't know if I'm crazy. Everyone knows I'm crazy, but like, am I completely off base?
Well, people have talked about that before, about a lot of the Midwestern non-football private schools, mostly Catholic, not exclusively Catholic. Butler, Evansville, a couple that I mentioned are not Catholic. I don't think like Drake is not Catholic. I think a lot of people have speculated over the years and tried to like kind of put together that kind of conference. But the problem is, to really make that a value add for programs, you would need your Xaviers and your Butlers and your DePauls and Marquette, even like those kind of schools, to kind of come down to that conference, right? Because that would be for them coming down a level to join the Midwest privates, Catholics, whatever you want to call them, to make that kind of a league. I just think like that's the kind of thing that may have been possible 30 years ago. Before Conference USA, I don't know if that's possible now. You would have just had to have more foresight back then. And look, would you have even been able to keep it together? Like once the Big East fell apart football wise, teams probably would have been poached anyway. But I think the ship has sailed on something like that happening, and college athletics has morphed into something so different from the time when that I think would have been more possible, and we were more bonded with a lot of those schools. So I think it's a missed opportunity, unfortunately.
Oh, I hate everything, Pete.
Yeah, Craig Upchurch, we hardly knew ye, but look, I just this is one where I think we missed an opportunity to have a really great team at the end of the 80s there. I think Grauer is an underrated coach. I think he absolutely could have taken them on a couple of runs. I guess you could argue those teams underperformed a little bit with him by not making a tournament and just doing the NIT thing. But regardless, I don't think it would have put the program in a different spot long term. So was the Upchurch thing bad? Yes. Yeah, I think so. It's disappointing. I don't know who in the school made that decision, and I'm always frustrated. I would rather take a chance on a guy and it not work out than just not even give him a chance, academically speaking, especially a local guy. I think that's just bad. That's not helping anybody out. So yeah, there are a lot of regrettable things about that. But yeah, in the end, I think we probably wind up in Conference USA in 1994 or 95, whenever the league took off.
Well, Pete, I think we've talked it to death. Any last notes on the Craig Upchurch situation?
No, man, I think we covered it. I think we covered it. Why are you leading me to anything? That I forget
No,
anything?
no. Just just asking.
Yeah, no, I think that's it. But I do, if anybody still listening to this disagrees with me on anything, or Zach on anything, or thinks we got something wrong, or has a different opinion or of where, the Upchurch omission, fiasco, denial, whatever you want to call it, let us know. Hit us up. And
Yeah.
And because we're always up for learning more about the history of Billiken basketball.
Absolutely. And again, thanks to Joel Hall for putting together that Twitter thread a bit ago. He always the thread god always comes with some really interesting stuff.
Yeah, for sure. He's become the kind of unofficial SLU basketball historian. He does nice work with that.
Absolutely. Well, that does it for this week in Billiken Athletics. Follow us on all social media if you haven't already. Like, subscribe, rate, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. We're everywhere. Go subscribe. As always, Pete, go Bills.
Go Bills.